that gray steak on your plate, it's not your pan's fault. It's not the meat's fault. It's one mistake you're making before the steak even touches the heat. And it's not just one thing. There are four mistakes almost everyone makes with steak, and the fourth one is the one nobody believes, because it's the opposite of what every cookbook has told you for 50 years. Let's start with the big one. Mistake number one, your steak is wet. Here's the science nobody tells you. That deep brown crust, the one you get at a steakhouse, comes from something called the Maillard reaction. It's a chemical reaction between proteins and sugars, and it only kicks off properly when the surface of the meat hits about 150 degrees Celsius. But water physically cannot go above 100 degrees. It just turns to steam. So if your steak is wet and straight out of the packet, it always is. The pan spends its first few minutes boiling water off the surface. You're not searing your steak, you're steaming it. The fix costs nothing. Kitchen paper. Press it onto every side of the steak until the paper comes away dry. 30 seconds of patting is the difference between gray and golden brown. That's it. That's the whole trick the steakhouse doesn't tell you. But drying your steak only fixes the outside. Mistake number two lives inside the meat. Cut your steak open and look at it. Brown crust, pink middle, and between them that thick gray dry band. That band is pure overcooked meat, and here's what's actually happening in there. Heat doesn't teleport to the center of a steak. It crawls layer by layer. So by the time the middle finally reaches medium rare, the layers near the surface have been sitting way past well done for minutes. They've had every drop of moisture squeezed out of them. That's the gray band. It's not a cooking style. It's collateral damage. And the counterintuitive fix, hotter, not gentler. A screaming hot pan builds your crust in a couple of minutes before the heat has time to crawl deep and wreck the inside. Low and slow in a frying pan doesn't make steak tender. It makes it gray all the way through. Mistake number three, you're salting at the worst possible moment. And I mean the times, worst times. There's an exact window of time where salt actively ruins your crust. Salt pulls moisture out of meat. So if you salt your steak 10 minutes before cooking, you've drawn a layer of brine to the surface right when you were trying to keep the surface dry. You've undone your kitchen paper. Remember rule one, wet steak steams. The science says salt at one of two times. Either the moment before the steak hits the pan, before the salt has time to pull anything out, or at least 45 minutes ahead. Because give salt enough time and something brilliant happens. The moisture it pulled out dissolves the salt and gets reabsorbed, seasoning the meat deep inside and leaving the surface dry again. It's called a dry brine, and it's how the best steakhouses prep every single cut. Salt now, or salt in 45 minutes, never in between. That middle window, 3 to 25 minutes, is the dead zone. Which brings us to mistake number four, the one nobody believes. Because for 50 years, every cookbook, every TV chef, every dad at a barbecue has repeated the same rule: sear your steak to times, seal in the juices, and flip it only once. Both halves of that are wrong. First, searing does not seal in anything. Scientists actually tested this. They weighed steaks before and after cooking, seared versus unseared. The seared steaks lost just as much juice, sometimes more. A crust is delicious, but it is not waterproof. It's flavor, not a force field. And second flipping once is actually the slow way. Food scientists tested this too, and steak flipped every 30 seconds cooks up to 30% faster and more evenly than steak flipped once. Here's why. Every time you flip, the hot side gets a break from the pan and its surface heat spreads gently inward while the other side sears. Neither side ever gets long enough to overcook deep below the surface. Flip once, and one face just sits there taking damage the whole time. Constant flipping is how you shrink that gray band to almost nothing. So flip it. Flip it every 30 seconds, like it owes you money. It feels wrong. The results aren't. Now, quick bonus mistake, because it catches almost everyone. Butter. If you start your steak in butter, you've lost before you've begun. Butter contains milk solids, and they burn at about 150 degrees, exactly the temperature your crust needs. That black, bitter speckle on your steak, burnt milk. Start with a plain oil that can take the heat Then in the final minute, add the butter, let it foam, and spoon it over the steak. You get all the butter flavor with none of the burn. That's what chefs are actually doing when you see them basting. Do these things together, and here's what comes out of the pan. A proper dark crust because the surface was dry and the pan was hot. Pink from edge to edge because you flipped constantly and the gray band never formed. Seasoned all the way through because the salt went on at the right time. So, the recap. Pat it bone dry wet steak steams. Get the pan properly hot. The gray band comes from slow heat. Salt now or 45 minutes ahead, never in between. And flip it every 30 seconds. The once only rule was never real. Oh, and butter goes in at the end, not the start. Now, here's the thing. Even doing all of this, one piece of equipment in your kitchen might be quietly capping how good your steak can ever get, and it's probably the pan you use every single day. That's the next video. You're going to look at your nonstick pan very differently.